then I wanted to start it in Kew Gardens. But the interesting thing was then, everybody knew that the tree of Woolsthorpe was the tree from which Newton had seen the apple fall. There was no doubt that that's what it was. The tradition was that, and they wanted to protect it. Well, something funny happened. An academic who was translating Newton's mathematical papers, a man called D.T. Whiteside, who ended up with a chair in mathematics at Cambridge. He was really a historian, but he was a good Latin scholar, and he was translating Newton's papers from Latin into English, and it was a huge work. There are 8 volumes of these things, because he was one hell of a mathematician. He was one hell of everything else, but he was a very prolific mathematician, and he was translating his 8 volumes. And for some reason, somebody asked him whether he could comment about the story about Newton and the apple. And his view was it probably wasn't true, because Newton may not have, but probably wasn't at Woolsthorpe Manor between the magic years 1664, 1665, because in Newton's mother's will, there was no mention of the house. And so Kew Gardens thought, well, we can't have a tree growing here whose validity is based on something which an expert, i.e. this Whiteside, is casting aspersions on. So they chopped the tree down and they destroyed all their records. Well, that's all right, that's what you do. And so we'll just leave it there. But until this incident of Whiteside writing a report for Kew, the tree was accepted as being the tree. We'll move on. 1977, a group of us from the university and the Astronomical Society decided to go down to Cambridge to look at the telescopes over there. And on the way down, we were rather early, so the coach I said, well, let's go and look at Woolsthorpe Manor. And what happened was, we pulled into Woolsthorpe Manor, and we had a very, very brief discussion by this man, the warden, who's a man called Selwyn Kay. And after talking about Newton and all these things, he pointed to a little tree growing outside the front door and said that this is a part of Newton's apple tree. And he said there are 2 others in the world. One's at Kew Gardens, and one is in the Fellows' Garden at Trinity College in Cambridge. It turned out, well, it was thought it known, or maybe I'm sorry, anyway, but I have a brother who was botanist at Kew, and as soon as I got home, I telephoned him and said, can you get me past the apple tree? And he said, well, I'll see what I can do. And on New Year's Eve, 1977, a very tender, delicate plant, grafted part, reached out right just like that door. And it was like being in the presence of wood from the true cross. It was a magical, sacred piece of wood. And I didn't really know what to do with it. So we talked to people in the department, the university decided that they'd make a garden for it, and we planted it. So we planted in April in 1977, and that's the tree which is growing now. But I thought, well, good Lord, if we're going to have a planting ceremony, the Vice Chancellor was there, all sorts of people were there. I thought that I'd need to know a bit more about the actual truth about the stories. I just accepted what I'd been told without any real critical assessment of it. And so I thought, all right, well, I can find out more about this. So I telephoned Woolsthorpe Manor and asked them, well, what was the truth about this tree? What was the history of it? They said, we have no idea. And I said, but the bloke said, this bloke selling cake said, well, this is true. He said, well, I just tell people that. I don't know if it's true or not. So I thought, well, damn that. I then got in touch with Kew Gardens, but then Kew said, well, we've lost all our records, they've all been destroyed, so you're not going to get people from us. And I thought, well, I'll telephone the Royal Society. They're bound to know. And they said, we have no idea what you're talking about, and we doubt that the story is true. So I thought, damn this, we've got a tree which we're going to plant, and we don't know really what their origin is, and there are a lot of sceptical scientists around, and they'd be rather fed up if we couldn't tell the story. And so, it turns out the fount of all knowledge is the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1911. If you want to know anything about anything, then go to the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica. If you want to read articles by Einstein or Bohr or anything, it's all there. And so I just read a bit about Newton. And it's a huge section is on Newton. And it said that the apple tree was blown down sometime around about 1820 or so, and it was made into a chair. And the chair, when the residence I visited was at Stoke Rochford Hall, which is about 7 miles away from Newton's birthplace, which is Woolthorpe Manor. And so I immediately went down to Stoke Rochford, and I said, have you got the chair? The bloke said, yes, but we don't know whether it's right or not. But when you looked at the chair, it was obviously a chair made of apple wood, and it was the right chair. There's no doubt it was the right chair. So I took a photograph of it, and went home thinking, well, at least there's something, there's some evidence that something once existed. Because at the time it was just a story. And so, now where the hell are we? I know. I got back, I was in my lab, and I got a telephone call from a bloke called Major Turner of Stoke Rochford, who was the last owner of Woolthorpe Manor. And he said, I gather you're interested in Newton's apple tree. And I said, yes. And he said, well, come down, and I think I've got some interesting stuff for you. And I went down to something, a little Ponton Hall where he was, and he opened a huge great blue book, and in it was a drawing of the apple tree and where it was standing, where it grew with the section of Woolthorpe Manor. So there was a drawing. By the way, I tried to get this thing printed, but I've only got a small. You won't be able to see it, it's so small, so I won't even show you. But anyway, it's a drawing of Woolthorpe Manor with the apple tree and Hook at Law. Now, there was a tree and we knew where it was growing. I thought, that's at least a step in the right direction. Anyway, by the time the plant ceremony occurred, I could tell them some story about the origin of the tree, but I didn't know how our tree was connected at all to the tree in this drawing. And time passed, we planted it, people forgot about it. But I didn't forget about it, but unfortunately they did. And what then happened was, in September, all the undergraduates had gone back to their various homes, and one had time to go down to Woolthorpe. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll photograph the house from where the tree stood. And I took the department's camera. You want me to go, do you? I tell you. Keep going, yes, do that. Look, keep going. Once I start, there's real trouble because there's so much to tell you that if you sat here till Christmas, I would stop. Well, I better stop. Anyway, what happened was I got the department's Nikon camera, and I got this drawing in my left hand. That's drawing there. That's sorry. Which was in Major Turner's archive, and I've got this thing in my left hand. I'm looking through the camera to find the picture that this was showing, and I fell over a tree. I walked backwards into this damn thing, and I looked down, and I saw what was the tree in the drawing, and it was talk about a damaging moment. I couldn't believe that I wasn't in 1820. It was just an extraordinary thing to happen. I fell over the tree, and I immediately went into the house and asked this guy, Selwyn Cave, and he happened to be somewhere. I telephoned him and said, "What on earth is the tree I've fallen over?" And he said, "Well, that's Newton's apple tree." And I said, "Why on earth didn't you tell us that when I was here in June?" And he said, "Well, I couldn't really explain it." He didn't. But this tree I fell over was a tree from which our cutting came. This was a tree which the people from Kew had gone to save from destruction during the war and the invasion, possibly by the Germans. And the question really then was, could I show that the tree which was there, over which I fell, was the tree? And if you're desperate, and you it's all written up in contemporary physics. So it's written up not quite before you were born, but about 15 or so years ago it's been written up. So it's all in here, all the details of how one showed that this tree is the right tree. So what we have, we've got a part of a tree which was probably planted in 1653. Actually, that's a funny date, but it's 1653 is an important date. And it probably is the tree which you did see the apple fall in 1665, and it's still growing, but it's on its third set of roots. It did fall over in about 1812 it was, and it regrew, and the chair, I'm going to shut up now. What do you want me to shut up for? Oh, sorry, you're going to eat the pie. Well, the apples in the pie come from our apple tree, and if you want to know more about it, you can come and ask. Okay, well, I'll
Thank you, Richard. As you move through your career, your undergraduate career here at York, you'll understand actually just how much a great story this is that Richard's given us. But anyway, the pie awaits. It's a great way to start your physics career here at York, so enjoy the rest of the night.